Our State of Unrest investigative series forced the resignation of the longtime state police superintendent, launched a criminal investigation into the state's highest paid troopers, and led to the suspension of a statewide ticket writing program. We made more than 30 public records requests and recorded thousands of hours of undercover surveillance. Tonight, we take a look back at our year-long investigation that rocked state police to its core. Here's State of Unrest. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? But for 4 employees of Louisiana State Police, the trip from point A to point B comes with a 350-mile detour via Sin City. Darrell Williams, Rodney Hyatt, Thurman Miller, and Alexander Nezgodinsky drove to the conference from Baton Rouge to San Diego in a state police vehicle. Why did 4 people drive there?
We were going to rent a car when we were there. And one of the things I looked at is the fact that maybe we can save some money by allowing these individuals, I don't have to pay them airfare. When
you calculate the troopers' salaries, meals, hotels, and gas, the drive cost state police and taxpayers $19,000. That doesn't include the costs once they reach San Diego. Comparatively, flying instead of driving would have cost a total of $5,000, and that includes a car rental in San Diego. Who thought driving there was going to be cheaper than flying them there?
Well, when you first looked at the airfare, which was
$300.
Well, depending on when you bought that airfare, Lee. Look, I understand that. Let me tell you something. I don't agree with it.
But someone okayed it.
I don't like it. I know that, and I'm looking into that now.
But the troopers' drive to San Diego went off course. They took a detour through northern Texas, the next night in northern Arizona at a resort town in Grand Canyon National Park, and the third night in Las Vegas at the Palazzo Hotel. It took 4 days to get to San Diego.
Unacceptable, isn't it?
On day 3 of the trip, the 4 drove through Tusayan, Arizona to Las Vegas. According to Google Maps, that's 269 miles, about 4 hours. But 3 of the state troopers put in for a 12-hour workday. The next day, they drove south from Las Vegas to San Diego, 332 miles, just a 5-hour drive. 2 troopers put in, though, for a 14-hour workday, another 12 hours. Is that theft, though?
I'm embarrassed by it. I don't think it's right at all.
But is it illegal?
I don't know that it's theft, Lee.
Let me ask you this. If you're driving from northern Arizona to Las Vegas, it's a 4-hour drive, and you put down on your timesheet that you worked 12 or 14 hours that day, what is that then?
It's appalling. It's appalling. It's embarrassing, and it's something that should not have happened.
What if a public employee in another office would be doing that? Would they be prosecuted?
I'd look in the whole thing and let you know, Lee. I mean, that's something I don't think it's criminal. I don't think the intention part of that is.
The drive to San Diego took 4 days. Their drive back, just 3. They decided to take that straight line, driving mostly I-10, saving about 350 miles on the return trip. After our interview, Colonel Mike Edmondson launched an investigation and through a press release said he had just learned employees traveled through Las Vegas. But that may not be true. A last-minute check of the records revealed a significant finding. Here's a credit card statement for Darrell Williams with charges in Grand Canyon National Park and the Palazzo in Las Vegas. The signature of the supervisor who approved it is unrecognizable. But here's another document for Williams with what appears to be the same signature. And look at the name printed below it, Mike Edmondson. While the superintendent claims he didn't know about the trip, it appears he signed off on at least one expense report, essentially approving one employee's side trip through the Grand Canyon in Vegas, paid for with your money. Our findings were significant enough for U.S. Senator John Kennedy to call for Edmondson's resignation.
The leadership over there needs to change. It's an embarrassment. They all ought to hide their heads in a bag.
Our sources said the governor told Edmondson to retire or he'd be fired. Edmondson stepped down. A state police internal report released a few weeks ago says Edmondson was dishonest in this interview. As the signature suggests, the police report says Edmondson was obviously aware of the Las Vegas and Grand Canyon side trip and went to great lengths to cover up his knowledge of it. The report says Edmondson deleted text messages on Trooper Rodney Hyatt's phone that showed Edmondson knew about the trip. Edmondson asked Hyatt to hand over his phone, and Hyatt says Edmondson erased the messages. Hyatt's proof gone, but Hyatt's wife still had hers. Text messages to Edmondson from the Grand Canyon and Hoover Dam. The troopers told Edmondson, "It's been fun." And at one point, Edmondson responded, "Y'all better get to San Diego." After Edmondson retired, State of Unrest shifted focus as our investigation spent 7 months on undercover surveillance on the highest paid troopers in the state and a ticket writing program called LACE.
This is absolutely, as a matter of criminal law, theft.
We revealed possible payroll theft that launched a criminal investigation into the 3 highest paid employees in state police. State Trooper Daryl Thomas makes more money than any other law enforcer in Louisiana, more than any district attorney, police chief, the attorney general, even his boss, the superintendent of state police. Last year, taxpayers paid Thomas $240,000. But our investigation shows Thomas may not have legally earned much of that money. August 17th, on his timesheet, Thomas claims he started work at 7 that morning, but our undercover camera waited and spotted him leaving for work 2.5 hours later at 9:32. 152 minutes Thomas stayed at home while earning money from taxpayers.
When you're paid, you should be out there patrolling.
Absolutely.
Doing your job.
You should be patrolling or doing a patrol function.
We had an undercover camera at Thomas's house for 12 different workdays over the past few months. What we found for all 12 days, Thomas claimed hours on his timesheet he didn't work. September 4th of this year, Labor Day, Thomas billed taxpayers for 16 hours. The first 6 hours he worked a ticket writing overtime shift in St. Charles Parish. Then from noon to 10 p.m., his timesheet shows he worked his regular state police shift. But our undercover camera caught Thomas at home from 11:10 until 5 p.m. Almost 6 hours of that workday, Thomas didn't work. September 6th, Thomas claims he worked 6 a.m. until 10 that night. But of the 16 hours Thomas billed taxpayers that day, 6 of them he remained in his house.
The allegations are very concerning here. They're very troubling.
Thomas has historically been the highest overtime earner in the state and is consistently ranked among the state's highest paid employees. The last 2 years, he's made $240,000, more than the Vice President of the United States. Each year, that included $147,000 in overtime. Those overtime levels caught our attention 7 years ago when we asked then State Police Superintendent Mike Edmondson about Thomas's workload and overtime.
Know him well, good trooper, very hard worker. I can assure you every one of those hours he put down, he worked.
Edmondson guaranteed his work product then, but now we have proof he may not have worked all of the hours he claimed.
Going and staying at your house is unacceptable for anybody in Louisiana State Police while you're being paid.
But there's more. September 6th of this year, traffic tickets show Thomas wrote a citation at 10:45 in the morning.
Now, how is that possible? Oh, my goodness.
Not possible because at the time Thomas says he wrote that ticket in St. Charles Parish, our undercover surveillance spotted his car about 40 minutes away at his Harvey home.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
The next day, September 7th, Thomas claims he wrote a ticket at 11:10 a.m., the same time our undercover surveillance unit recorded his car at his house. Fast forward to 11:45, Thomas still at home, but once again he claims he wrote another ticket. Thomas wrote these questionable tickets as part of the LACE program, short for Local Agency Compensated Enforcement Detail. Local parish governments contract with state police to have troopers write tickets on highways in that parish. The parishes pay the overtime and mileage of the trooper. They get to keep the ticket money. At least 44 parishes across Louisiana hire LACE details. Thomas wrote many of his questionable tickets in St. Charles Parish, like the one he gave James Flick in January of 2016. According to the ticket state police sent us, Flick received the citation at 2000 hours, or 8 at night.
No, it definitely wasn't 8 at night.
Flick says Thomas flagged him on his way home from work, though, around 3 in the afternoon.
I know this definitely wasn't at nighttime. This was definitely during daytime. I've never gotten a ticket at nighttime.
So we requested dash camera video from state police, and it shows Flick receiving his ticket in daylight, not 8 at night. In fact, the timestamp shows the video started at 14:59 or 2:59 in the afternoon.
Wow, that is really amazing. I mean, that establishes to me that this was a preordained, thought-out plan to falsify the citation records for the purposes of obtaining compensation under the LACE program. There can be no other explanation when you separate the two out.
Flick sent us the ticket he received from Thomas. The time, while not fully legible, is different. Most noticeable, the 2 found in the state police version that indicates 8 at night is missing from Flick's copy. That January day, Thomas worked a 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. late shift. In addition to Flick's ticket, Thomas alleges he wrote citations at 4:47, 6:30, and 7:49. But that's impossible because according to his dash camera, he didn't write one ticket after 16:22 or 4:22. Here's dash camera video from the ticket Thomas says he wrote at 7:49. The timestamp at 15:17, 3:17 in the afternoon.
One could be a mistake, but this pattern can only be explained as an attempt to cover up and justify the falsification of the timesheets. This is part of a criminal enterprise by this trooper of engaging in theft.
Well, there's obviously a difference between writing down the wrong time and it's a mistake that you wrote down the wrong time. Now, if you're intentionally writing down the wrong time on citations, then that's of grave concern to us. The time that someone gets stopped and gets issued a citation for a violation, that's the time that needs to be on the document.
And if it's not?
It's a criminal offense.
One potential crime injuring a public record.
Punishable by up to 1 year in prison and a fine for every time you do it.
In a small sampling of tickets, we found 11 instances where Thomas appears to have falsified the time. Our undercover surveillance investigation found 3 more highly paid troopers committing possible payroll fraud. July 21st of this year, we parked an undercover surveillance unit outside the home of Byron Sims. Sims worked a 12-hour late shift in St. Charles Parish. And look at his timesheet. He claims he worked 6 a.m. until 1800 hours, or 6 p.m. But our undercover surveillance unit caught Sims arriving back home at 3:08. 3 hours before his shift ended, and he never went back to work.
You're getting paid by the hour.
Okay, and if you put a certain amount of hours on your timesheet, you should be working those hours.
Yes, sir.
And that's understood, and everyone in state police knows that.
Yes, sir.
We had a surveillance unit on Sims for 5 different Fridays. Each day he arrived home early, well before the end of his late shift.
It's disgraceful, it's shocking, it's unacceptable.
Last year, Sims made $200,000, a large chunk of that overtime earned through this LACE program. Another trooper made more. Last year, taxpayers paid Eric Curley $207,000. He earned $106,000 in overtime, much of that from the LACE program. On August 16th, Curley worked a 4-hour LACE shift in St. Charles Parish from 4 to 8 p.m., but our undercover camera caught him leaving his house at 5:37, 97 minutes into his shift. On August 21st, Curley worked a 5 to 9 p.m. late shift in St. Charles Parish. He left his house at 5:35 and arrived back home at 8:43.
What kind of confidence can you have on your law enforcement officials when they are openly, blatantly, and intentionally violating the law?
Our undercover surveillance also found more. Trooper Eric Curley dropping off his child in a police vehicle while still on the clock. We found Curley, Sims, and another trooper, Sean Boyd, all shaving time off their regular state police shifts, marking on their timesheet they worked while they were at home. Our state of unrest investigation led to the resignation of the superintendent of state police. The 4 troopers who made that side trip were reprimanded, demoted, and paid back money. State of Unrest launched a criminal investigation into 4 state troopers. And after our findings, the new state police commissioner suspended the LACE program. An agency responsible for enforcement had people at the highest level possibly breaking the law.